So we're going to
Great.
start with the article you have. Election workers are under attack. We
Yeah.
need to fight for them. And I think
Yeah.
this is a great place to start because this is
Hmm.
something that people listening here locally can get involved with and engage with.
Definitely.
So you said a survey published by the Brennan Center last summer found that nearly 1 in 3 local election officials do not feel safe in their jobs. Can you maybe illuminate why they don't feel safe and like what the responsibility of some of these local election officials are?
So I think I want to kind of, I think we can talk a lot of these about these things in the abstract sense, but I think
Yep.
really personalizing it is really important here. So during the last presidential election, there's an election worker in Georgia who, after Donald Trump and the a lot of the people in the Republican Party tweeted her name saying that she was changing votes, she received thousands of death threats and had to essentially figure out a way to protect herself, which is extremely dangerous given the fact that you have someone that's just a volunteer that really just wants to help their community being harassed by thousands and thousands of people. And I think you know this as someone that's on the internet a lot. I'm on the internet a lot. People are really nasty. And for someone that was just simply volunteering to have to deal with that level of attack and that level of vitriol is really disgusting. So that's what really inspired me to write this piece, really reading her story and then reading so many stories of different people around the country that were simply just trying to volunteer, really help their community. During an election, and we're faced with so much hate and vitriol because you had the former president of the United States and you had people that worked for him spreading the lie that the Democrats had orchestrated this big election hoax. And, when that type of narrative gets pushed, it's so dangerous because, one, people forget, but I think they know this, that the founding of our country was essentially built around this idea of people rising up against a really dangerous authority figure. So when you go out and spread a lie that people need to rise up against an authority figure, you are basically forcing violence. You're going out and saying people should carry out violent acts, and that's really scary to see. And we're seeing the real consequences of it. So I wrote this article in the hopes that I used to work on the Hill, so I know how, ideas get created and ideas get floated around, is that people in our leaderships can read an article like this and really come together to try to create solutions that protect election workers. Because at the end of the day, if we don't do this, a lot of people are going to be harmed. A lot of people will honestly stop volunteering for these roles. And then that's even another problem. How do we make sure that one of the crucial roles to keeping our democracy functioning is people are joining and doing these jobs. So it's my hope in writing this article was really that we can figure out some common sense solutions to protect election workers, because I think enough is enough.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because anyone that's ever volunteered at the polls, that's ever volunteered at the Board of Elections, knows that like these aren't like glamorous, fun jobs. I mean, I have fun at the
Hmm.
polls. I mean, I'm sure plenty of people have fun, on
Yeah,
election day.
but we're both nerds, so we're going to
Yeah,
enjoy it anyways.
yeah. It's not normal for somebody to love and thrive in that kind of thing. But there are different, like, judge of elections is a pretty much thankless job. It's a pretty, and that's like one of these levels of local officials that people have been going after. The judge of elections is somebody that like helps you out when you are going to the polls, or like the constable, or like all these people that like kind of have to be around on election day and help all this stuff. But the big lie has been repeated enough where I sit at the polls from 7 a.m. till the count is done, the in-person
Hmm.
count is done. I have seen so much easily disprovable nonsense spewed by Pennsylvania Republicans, let alone Wisconsin and all these other states that you just see nonsense. Like, we have poll watchers from both parties, every polling place. So this is just a ridiculous amount of crap that is just thrown against the wall just to see what sticks. And one
Hmm.
other thing that you noted in this article was that there was at least, and granted, I think this might be a little out of date just because of the primary season being winding down, but
Of
there was
course.
over 50 three election deniers that were running for governor in
Mm-hmm.
25 states
Mm-hmm.
throughout the country.
Yeah.
Can you kind of dive into like what this means for our elections? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you could talk about Pennsylvania or anything across the country, because governor
Mm-hmm.
obviously is quite the important role following the Dobbs decision.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll first say this. One of the most important things in any democracy, whether it's the United States, abroad, is trust. And the fact of the matter is that if we have people that are elected spreading the fact that they shouldn't trust the government, they shouldn't trust the people that elect them, and they shouldn't even trust, the fact that their vote counts, you are really eroding kind of our constitution. And other than us as people, the Constitution is all we have. And if Republicans want to take that and rip it up and throw it away, there are going to be serious consequences. For one, the kind of safety of election workers, as mentioned in the article, and I think two, the safety of our democracy. But then I think three, also the credibility of us around the world. There's so many countries that their people want a democracy. They want the opportunity to make their voices loud and clear in elections. And they use the United States as an example that say, hey, democracy works there. We can have it here. But the more that we don't get our shit together, I unfortunately want to say, it gives a lot of people abroad, bad actors, gives them the opportunity to say, hey, you want to be like America? You want to have a democracy? They can't even have an election right. They can't even run a democracy. Yeah, that's why you should have a democracy. So I think a lot of times it's important to look at how this affects us. And I think that's great and all, but maybe it's another article I'll explore sometime. But if we don't think about the larger effects that this is going to have, not only on us, but on the world and on other countries that for so long have been trying to build a democracy, it's really scary to think about. And going to the main question you asked about the governor races and happening around the country, I think, the role of a governor it's a state executive. To give context. So if you have an estate executive that is elected and then can go and say that the elections that happen after them are not real, you are ruining the legitimacy of the state government itself, but also the person that is elected can then never leave office because they'll say that, oh, the election that happened, if they lose, wasn't real. And it's really dangerous when that happens, as I've mentioned, because, when we have someone that's saying these elections aren't real, they're fake, they're really eroding the trust that our country is built on. And I really hope that we can come and figure out how to solve this problem. To be honest, I don't have all the solutions. I think it's really tough because our country is built on free speech. But at the same time, you have to figure out what can we say, what can't we say? And I think that's a really hard topic to figure out solutions to.
It's definitely a tougher line to walk than people want
Yeah.
to say. I mean, it's definitely like a lot of people just want to call themselves a free speech absolutist, and I get it in theory, but then you talk about like the threats to people's lives, and it's like the list goes on and on and on, obviously, and it's just we need to, as a society, reevaluate. Do we care more about this arbitrary freedom, or do we care about our democracy more than letting people just spew nonsense and get away with it? And there is that balance of like, okay, it's incumbent upon people like us to get out in front of it and say, yeah, this is all provable nonsense. So we'll keep fighting on that front.